So here in this video, we're going to talk about the main difference between the classic RE2 and the new remake that's going to come out next year, and specifically the events that's going to happen before, during, and after the fight with William Birkin. As we saw in Gamescom 2018, we got to see a glimpse of the gameplay trailer of Claire Redfield going up against William Birkin. We also got to see our first look of Sherry Birkin, Chief Irons, and how they interact with Claire. So I think this will be a good time to differentiate the events that lead up to the actual boss fight with William and the boss fight itself, and see how Capcom pretty much revised the approach to this part of the storyline, and see if it will be better compared to the classic RE2. So first we'll start off with some gameplay footage of Claire Redfield exploring the new area in the RPD station, and it appears to be like the basement / sewer area, kind of similar to the classic RE2 but reimagined in a way that would be suitable for today's gameplay. We get to see Claire walk down these dark corridors, and you still get the sense of claustrophobia just due to the fact that the passageways are narrow and pretty much enveloped with a dark environment. While Claire is exploring, we get to see our first glimpse of Sherry Birkin running right above Claire. Then we see Claire chase after her until we reach an area where we get a great pan shot of the whole environment that we're about to explore. With these clips alone, we can already see a big difference compared to the classic RE2, because here in this environment, it appears to be laid out as a much larger area, but it still evokes a sense of feeling trapped because of the dark corridors and the narrow ways. In a little bit later clips of this video, we'll get to see how the boss environment was similar but yet different compared to the classic RE2. So anyway, let's move on to where we finally get to see our first face-to-face interaction with Sherry Birkin, which is already a big difference on how we meet her compared to the classic RE2, because in the classic game, we first interact with her at the back room near Chief Irons' office. In this interaction, it actually starts off with Claire trying to get Sherry out of hiding, but soon after we get a great clip from Sherry where she mentions, I love the fact that in that one clip, Sherry's able to set the tone for the boss battle that's about to happen. Compared to the classic version, here we get to see Claire Redfield already in shock to the fact that William Birkin is already stumbling right behind her, which we get to see our first glimpse of him. This is already a major difference in approach and feel compared to the classic RE2, just because here in this remake, it doesn't give the player the option to realize the events that just led up to the actual boss fight. We are literally thrown into the chaos and put in a situation where Claire is already in imminent danger. So the boss battle starts off with William already swinging that pipe around like a maniac, and you know what, I actually love the fact that he's still using that pipe as a primary weapon against the player, similar as he did in the classic RE2. But you know what, the main difference is the fact that he's much more aggressive, especially when he swings that pipe around in the air like a madman. This is already a perfect reimagination of what I thought William Birkin should be looking like, and how I imagined him to be, and how he handles a fight against Claire, using the exact same weapon as he did in the original game. Anyways, here in this boss battle, we as the players get to fight William in a similar fashion as we did in the classic RE2 game, because we are stuck in an environment that still gives the effect of claustrophobia, just due to the fact that the actual player is stuck in a cramped and darkened boss arena. And also, even though now that in the remake, the player's characters are much more mobile compared to his predecessors, I still feel as though we're not agile enough to easily dodge William, especially when he charges towards you. As we all notice, William is much more aggressive in this version of the game. He doesn't just slowly approach the player as he did in the classic game, he can literally run towards you while trying to smash your skull in with that pipe. Not only can he do that, he can also grab the player by the head, and he could presumably kill you if you don't get out of his grip, as shown in this clip right here. This looks like to be like a new move that was absent from the classic RE2. The only thing I could actually think of in the classic that would actually stun the player during the boss battle was when William would actually raise his pipe above the player's head and slam it down towards the player, and the player can barely move after that. Another thing we get to see during the boss battle is that we get to see an arsenal of weapons that Claire uses against William. We get to see Claire use her standard handgun, her submachine gun, and a grenade launcher. And you know what? That explosion from the grenade launcher looks absolutely amazing.
Seriously?
Also, along with the new arsenal of weapons, here we get to see a new move where the player is being held down by William. We're actually able to escape by throwing what appears to be like a flash grenade, which will disorient William for a little bit, just enough so we could escape. Also, on a quick note, I did notice there wasn't any kind of background music during the boss fight in the new remake, which I hope they do add on the official release, because the boss music against William in the classic game was absolutely amazing and actually made the boss fight much better. I feel as though the background music during those boss battles against William in the classic RE2 added to the level of fear and adrenaline when you faced him, and you know what, I actually love for each time you fight him, the music gets intense each consecutive time. Anyway, so far with this remake's version of the boss fight, we are put in a much more action-packed boss battle compared to the classic RE2, but still retaining that sense of fear just due to the fact that the player is still working around small tight corridors and like a dark environment. And also, even though we're not limited by the tanky controls of the past, it actually doesn't help the fact that William is much more faster and aggressive compared to the RE2 version. Okay, so finally let's jump back to the classic RE2 and see the main difference compared to the new remakes. So we'll start out with how Claire's interaction with the other cast members are like Sherry, Chief Irons, William, and see how different it is from the classic version and how it compares to the new remakes version. So here in the classic RE2, Claire actually initially meets up with Sherry near Chief Irons' office, and she explains why exactly she's been hiding in the RPD station this whole time. It was actually Annette, her mom, who told her to stay in the RPD station because she thought it would be safer compared to staying at home, and that Sherry also explains that there's this much larger monster that's actually after her this whole time, and she proceeds to like kinda tell Claire to follow her. Alright, so this wouldn't be the only interaction that we'll have prior to the actual William boss fight. We get to see Sherry later on in the game, where we the players actually even get to play as her for a little short while. Then after that we get to see her again right before we head down to the elevator where we fight William. Alright, so here, after interacting with Sherry a couple of times already, we can already see a big difference in approach compared to the remakes version. So the player already has a sense of establishment with Sherry just due to the fact with all the interactions they've had together throughout the game so far. And we can also compare this to the remakes version, where we only get to see Claire interact with Sherry just for a short while, just right before the boss battle with William. Also, another difference the classic has compared to the new remake is that Claire gets to interact with Chief Irons before we fight William. Actually, the first time we get to see him is in his office next to the dead body of the mayor's daughter, which was kind of a little weird when we first see it. So the next time we see Chief Irons is a little bit later on the game, just right before the boss fight with William, where we actually find him hiding in his torture chamber room. You know what, I don't know exactly why he has one in the first place, but I guess it just shows how crazy and sick this character is.
You couldn't possibly understand what's happened.
So in this scene, we actually get to see Claire and Chief Irons interact just for a little bit inside this torture chamber room, and he actually proceeds to start confessing about some of the crimes he's actually done, about how he collaborated with Umbrella. He explains what the G-Virus is, and he actually mentions how Sherry is the daughter of William, the guy who actually made the G-Virus.
What is it? Tell me.
If you must know, it's the agent that can turn humans into the ultimate bioweapons. Superior to the T-Virus in every way. Dr. William Birkin is the genius behind the project.
William Birkin.
I'm sure you've already seen his little girl running around here somewhere. Sherry, isn't it? In case you haven't already figured it out, the monster that's been tearing my precinct apart is yet another product of the G-Virus. An ultimate bioweapon. Umbrella must be trying to cover...
Well, anyways, it's funny how in the new remakes version, it's actually Sherry who sets the tone before the boss fight with William, but unlike in the classic version, it's actually Chief Irons who sets the tone before the boss fight with William, especially his death scene. So when we the players play the classic for the first time, and after we get to see Chief Irons get dragged down the ladder and thrown into the air while missing half his body, it actually gives us a sense of fear and suspense to whatever's down that ladder. We the player better be damn ready to face whatever monster that killed Chief Irons like it was nothing. So in this classic version of the game, we're actually given the chance to let the events of what just happened sink in and mess with our minds just a little bit, unlike in the new remake where we are literally thrown into the boss battle right after Sherry warns us about William. And you know what? I actually feel like this approach to the classic version gave us its nice pace of slowly terrorizing the player by not showing us immediately what the monster looks like and how he'll behave against us during the boss fight. Alright, so finally, let's see William in this classic RE2 version. So he starts off stumbling towards you and proceeds to mutate. Anyway, same as the remake's version, William here is using the pipe as a primary weapon against Claire. Though in this version, William does walk slowly towards the player. He's not as aggressive or fast as he is in the remake's version, but even though William does have this limited range of motion and speed, we the players aren't exactly as nimble as well, so trying to run past him might actually be a bad idea. Anyways, here, we the players are actually limited by the tanky controls, fixed camera angles, and extremely small boss arena. You know what, actually the fight itself actually literally takes place in a small L-shaped platform, and William takes up a large amount of space while walking towards you. This old game mechanic system of limited mobility and fixed camera angles, in my honest opinion, really added to the sense of fear to this game. It actually prevented the players from easily dodging enemies, it also gave the players surprises around the corners, and it actually didn't help that we the players didn't have that much ammo in this game. So anyways, in this boss fight, William does have a couple of ways to attack the player, but the most absolute devastating attack that he has is when he raises the pipe right above his head and he slams it down towards the player. This can initially stun the player, but if he hits you just right, it can actually be an insta-kill. So if the player does beat William, he'll actually start stumbling towards the side of the platform near the bars, and he actually proceeds to fall. And you know what, to be honest, that was kind of anticlimactic when I first saw it, because I thought I would get this long cutscene right after the boss fight. So it does makes me wonder how the remake's version will handle William right after you beat him. Anyways, this boss battle is a stark contrast to the remake's version, where we actually get to see William swing that pipe around like a psycho and how he runs towards the player. But to each their own way, each version provides their own sense of fear during the boss battle. So we have William, who is much more aggressive and faster in the remake's version, but it's actually compensated by how the mobility of the player is much more fluid while using the over-the-shoulder camera angle, compared to the classic version where we the players have a limited range of motion and where fixed camera angles are used to produce a sense of powerlessness in the player. Each game's version has different ways of keeping the players engaged, but it looks like Capcom's doing a great job so far with the remake. After all the gameplay that we've seen so far with both Leon and Claire have been amazing, and I can't wait to play the game next year. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my video. It really did take me a long time to make it, so if you guys did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. Also, I'll be putting more RE2 content in the future, but in the meanwhile, please check out my other videos. It's mostly Devil May Cry gameplays, so if you guys do enjoy those kind of stuff, please check it out. Anyways, hope you guys have a great day. Until next time.